When you first come across this project, Multiversal Walkers, the first thing you see is this cycle through walking promo. Now, what I want to do today is I want to jump in and kind of break down the project, Multiversal Walkers, but I also want to break down the artist behind and the team behind it to actually bring it to fruition. Now, I think the best way to kind of start this off is talk about the people behind it, not necessarily the artist, but talk about the collective behind it. Now, the collective behind it is Not So Fungibles. Now, the idea with this is they're essentially the team that are going to take care of all of the back end stuff to actually ensure that this project can get to market. Because if you've been in the space long enough, you know that artist sort of led projects, and I'm not talking about art like driven projects, I'm talking about artists that actually lead, find it very hard to kind of sort of navigate the space because the artist is an artist and they're focused on the art, and you need someone at the forefront to kind of act on their behalf when it comes down to like the business of NFTs. So Not So Fungibles are kind of filling in that kind of void and that gap and assisting them bringing it to market, which I think is a good thing. I don't see as a bad thing, especially right now we're seeing project after project just absolutely fail and not do well. You are like on Mint, we need something to kind of come together. Now, what I want to touch on first is the artist Andre Boyd. Now, the first thing that you'll notice when you have a look and see this promo, what you'll then notice is the fact that it looks very similar to Invisible Friends. Now, there were some kind of rumors swirling around the fact that Andre was a student of the creator of Invisible Friends, that being Markus Magnusson. And yes, that is true. So Markus and Andre have a relationship when it comes down to kind of they're both artistic careers. But when I actually reached out and spoke to some of the team that are a part of Multiversal Walkers, what they wanted to say is they go, yes, it is true, but they also wanted to kind of go, they don't want to position Andre as a student because Andre has talents in his own right as an artist, and it isn't fair to just categorize an artist as a student when he has a style himself and he is developing his own kind of brand and his own techniques. So yes, that is true, but try not to look at Andre as a student of Markus, but look at them as just having the relationship and having those ties, which I think is good and adds weight to him as an artist. Now, one thing I want to kind of touch on when we have a look at Andre, he's got sort of 13,000 followers on Twitter, and Multiversal Walkers, they've got sort of almost 50,000 followers on Twitter. Now, I do believe that Andre would be getting a lot of the followers from the fact that he's kind of tagged in to the actual kind of main account themselves, which is cool, and there's a little bit of that flow-on effect. Now, while we're talking about Twitter followers, there's something I kind of want to point out and show you. We've got the 50,000 like I said, but what you can notice here is the pinned tweet here, 42,000 views. You can see it right down here in the bottom. Retweets 1,200, likes 3,000. It's crazy. Then when we have a look at this one, and these are whitelist giveaways. Like obviously that one was sort of tweeted, but 18 hours ago, 2,000 views, 600 likes, 300, almost 350 retweets. They're doing some sort of giveaways, which is cool. You can see the giveaway has gotten 16,000 with sort of 5,000 likes, 6,500 retweets. But the fact is, we can get a kind of almost like posts that aren't trying to generate engagement and generate a lot of hype and trying to just build that up. Posts that are just about the art are still getting a decent amount of views and they're getting some likes and engagement. So for me, that is a big tick because it is very often that you'll see a project only be posting up whitelist giveaways, which then just build that attraction and build that hype. This has got real authentic kind of eyeballs on it, which I think proves that it actually has a bit more of a chance to succeed in the market that we're in. Now, what I want to touch on now is just have a look at some of his work when it comes down to other social accounts, because Instagram is kind of where artists hang out. So if you have a look, some of his first posts on Instagram, we can see here, September 16, 2019. Now what we can see here, and then this is where we can start to see some walk cycles. So we can see that he's been doing this for a while, and we see December 28th, 2019. So when we start to have a look at Andre and his sort of career as an artist, he hasn't been doing this just for NFTs and just kind of like, hey, the walk cycle's hot, let's spin this up. The fact is, this is something that he is doing, but it's not just the walk cycle. He's got this cool little animation of an ollie. I will kind of critique this ollie and say that the foot placement isn't too good, but saying that, I am a skater myself. But other than that, I think the animation is quite cool. This is just what Andre has done. This is the kind of things that he's done, and this is April 23rd, 2020. So this adds some weight to what Andre has done in the past and is doing right now. He's not just jumping on a hype train. This is something that he's got in his sort of repertoire when it comes down to. And then when we have a look at his Behance, which is an extension of his Instagram account, essentially, this is his reel. So you can kind of get a little bit of a snapshot, the fact that he has put some interesting sort of animations and things together. This is what he does. He's not kind of doing this specifically for NFTs, but he is an artist, and this is his work, and this is what he's kind of done. So all of these little things that kind of add up to what I believe kind of builds a well-rounded sort of portfolio for an artist moving into the NFT space. Now, when we have a look at his foundation, he's got two items there. So we've got this walk sequence for sort of walk cycle for 0.8, and then we've got this one for sort of 3.5, and that was sort of made about 3 months ago. So I'm guessing that would have been around that Invisible Friends type sort of section, knowing that he's then going to be jumping into it, which I think is cool. Now, one thing I want to touch on is the art style and where I think a lot of inspiration comes from. And when you have a look on his Instagram account, he's got a Rick and Morty run cycle here, and then you've also got another sort of Rick and Morty kind of animated 3D kind of rig type thing. So yes, when you do look at Multiversal Walkers, it's got this very Rick and Morty animation sort of character design style, which I think does kind of hit somewhat of a nostalgic piece, and that's why I think people did gravitate towards it in the beginning. So when it comes down to the stats of the project, the mint date is still TBA and the mint price is still TBA. It's going to be a supply of 5,555 with 55 reserved for the team. Now, when it comes down to the whitelist, they're going to make sure that they're not kind of over supplied. They're not going to sort of do an over allocation. So keep that in mind. And a little fun fact for you, this character is named Tim, and the fact that in like the little kind of PR kind of piece that I received on a breakdown of the project, they go, "We are all Tim." And I think that's kind of funny because if you watch The Walking Dead, it's a big throwback to, I believe, kind of like the "We Are Negan," which is kind of that kind of almost like building a cult-like following and a cult-like sort of resonance when it comes to the project. So I think that is kind of fun. The fact that the character is called Tim and it's kind of like, "We are all Tim." So I think that is kind of cool. Now, a few other things that I want to touch on about the project is that it's going to be very community driven when it comes down to the project. And I like that they're not trying to cram in a whole bunch of crazy utilities that don't necessarily make sense at this point in time. They are going to be doing some in real life activations, things like that. But overall, I think it is cool the way that they're positioning this, and it actually kind of ties in well with what is happening at the moment. And I think it's a little bit of fun. So that is my look at Multiversal Walkers, looking at Andre Boyd and his kind of history when it comes down to creating art, to kind of show you why I think this project deserves a little bit more attention if you haven't come across it yet, or if you thought it was a cheap knockoff, that it actually has some history and some weight behind it. And I think that is very cool. So I think this is something to put on your radar. Links below to the Twitter account so you can go check that out and kind of keep in the loop. As always, this isn't financial advice. You do need to do your own research, but hopefully this kind of gave you a bit of an insight on the project from my perspective, and hopefully that can kind of help you out in your research when making a decision. So if you found value in this video, please consider hitting up that subscribe button while you're down there. Also hit up the like button. As always, it's been a pleasure having you with me. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.